Hello, fellow crafters. This is Yana Smakula for SimonsSTM.com. Welcome back for another Yippee for Yana video. Today I'm going to share one of my favorite ways to use my crafty supplies in a non-conventional way, not in the way they were designed. I'm going to be using the gorgeous Prismatic Snowflake stamp set from Simon. I love that this set features various size and design snowflakes, from the very large ones to even very tiny snowflakes. I also have a set of coordinating dies, and you'll want to make sure when you pick your supplies to recreate this card that the stamp set you've selected has a set of coordinating dies, unless of course you don't mind fussy cutting. We'll be doing a lot of die cutting for this card, so I feel like having coordinating dies is a must. I also picked several sheets of colored cardstock, and these also make the color scheme for my card. I have PESTO from Hero Arts. This is that nice dark green. Next is AUDREY blue from Simon, ADRIATIC from Hero Arts, and Fog also from Simon. So I have a dark green panel. This will be the background for the card. Next I have two teal panels, a light and a dark teal, and also a light gray panel. We will also need white embossing powder, and I prefer to use detail white as the snowflake images are rather detailed. So let's get started. I'm going to heat emboss the same set of snowflakes onto all of my panels, all three panels, the teal panels and the light gray. And to make it easier, I'm using a mini MISTI stamping tool. I won't be needing snowflakes in every size from this set, but just a few, and I need a good mix of sizes. I'm skipping the largest snowflakes as they are a bit too big for this card idea. Now, what is the idea for this card? The idea is to use these snowflake images to create a custom shape on a card. I'm going to be making a Christmas tree shape. You can also make an ornament shape. So anything simple. Christmas tree is a triangle, so a simple shape. An ornament is a circle, so another simple shape. You can also apply this idea to other stamps in your stash. You can use other images, not just snowflakes, to build custom shapes for your cards. But that's why I say it's important to have coordinating dies for whatever images you decide to use. Coordinating dies just make it a lot easier to cut the images out. And also you can cut as many images as you need. Of course, you can skip using the dies and simply stamp your images onto the background. But for this particular card idea, I wanted to have my images cut out and I wanted to pop them up on my card for added dimension. I've picked and positioned the snowflakes that I want on my background panel. I've closed the door of my MISTI to pick up the images. Next, I treated the panel with anti-static powder and used a dry brush to spread the powder on the panel. Next, I inked the stamps up with clear embossing ink. I closed the door of the MISTI to stamp the images. Lately, I like to use my elbow to really press the images to have a good, crisp impression on the paper. I find I'm able to apply more pressure this way. Having stamped the images, I'm going to add my detail white embossing powder. I love how these images instantly reveal themselves on the paper. And next, I'm using my heat tool to heat set the embossing powder on the paper. I repeated the same steps and embossed the same set of snowflakes on the other two panels that I had picked for my card. Next, I have coordinating dies. I've cut them apart, and I'm just using low-tech tape to attach the dies onto my panel and cut the snowflakes out. I really like how these dies cut very close to the edge, so I have very little of the outside border visible on my card. It doesn't really matter on this particular for these particular images because I'm using colored cardstock. But if I were to stamp these on white cardstock, for example, and then color using Copic markers or colored pencils, you would be able to see that white border. And with these particular dies, you have a very little border to your snowflakes. So I've cut the snowflakes out, and now I have my background panel, and I'm going to play around a little bit with all the different die cuts to build my custom tree shape. I'm starting from the bottom and I'm trying to decide how big of a tree I want. I also want to decide how I want to combine the different colors. I changed the placement a couple of times until I was happy. You can see me fiddling around with the snowflakes, trying different sizes here and there, trying different colors, different shapes. It's all a part of the process, and it is going to take you a couple of minutes to figure out that perfect placement for your shape. Now, if you find it difficult to visualize the triangle shape, if you are making a Christmas tree, or if you're making an ornament, if you find it difficult to visualize a circle shape, you can also use a pencil and trace a circle onto your panel or trace a triangle onto your panel and try to stay within the lines of the triangle when you're building your image or your shape. Now, next, I need to secure the shape in place. I'm not ready to adhere the shape onto the panel just yet. I want to add a sentiment onto my panel. I also don't want to add the parts of the shape one by one. I want to be able to add them all together. And to do that, I'm using low-tech tape. I'm adding that over the snowflakes just so that the entire shape is going to stay intact. Now, I prefer to use press and seal for this. It's the best product for the job, but I don't have any, so I'm using what I have on hand. Now, at first, I plan to use a slightly different sentiment for this card. I wanted to use one that says joy from the holiday sparkle greetings, and I did heat emboss that sentiment in gold embossing powder on this beautiful background. And here you can see the beautiful joy embossed on the panel. It does look stunning, but once I've added the Christmas tree onto the background, I realized that the sentiment was a little bit too big. It was a little bit too tall for the size of the Christmas tree that I made. So you'll later see me cut this shape out and use it on a different background with a different sentiment. Meanwhile, I added white foam adhesive squares to the back of my Christmas tree, and I tried to make sure to overlap the squares between the different shapes to also secure them together. I've added the Christmas tree shape onto my background, and now I'm also going to add those additional snowflakes, like the second layer snowflakes, onto the tree as well to build more dimension on my card and just add more fluffiness and more layers to my Christmas tree. Now, at this point, I realized that my tree was placed a little bit too high on the background and also that the sentiment was a little bit too big. Maybe if I had made a smaller tree, or maybe if I made a bigger card, maybe a slimline card, that would work, but it didn't work for this particular card size. And the card I'm making is A2, so 4¼ by 5½ inches. So I used my scissors and I carefully cut that Christmas shape out. Now, that's another tip for you. If you don't want to adhere your shape or build your shape directly on your background, you can also first adhere that onto another panel and then cut that panel out and adhere the panel onto the card. That makes it a lot easier. I picked a different stamp set to create a sentiment for this card. I went with sentiments from the Holiday Greetings Mix 1 set, and I picked one that reads, "Wishing you a peaceful Christmas." Now, this time I decided to use white detail embossing powder instead of using gold, as I felt that white would be a better fit for this particular card since my snowflakes are white. I repeated the same steps. I used my MISTI stamping tool. I treated the paper with anti-static powder, inked the images with clear embossing ink, stamped them onto the panel, added my white detail embossing powder, and heat set the panel using my heat tool. Next, I simply used glue and adhered the tree onto the panel. Now, this time it worked a lot better because I used glue. I was able to maneuver my die cut a little bit. I could move it up or down just a little bit to find that perfect placement for this tree shape. I have already adhered my background onto an A2 white card base. I did trim it down just a little bit, maybe 1/8 of an inch. And now I'm using various embellishments to add to my Christmas tree. I decided to use silver sequins to add onto the background surrounding my Christmas tree. And I also used small droplets to add onto the centers of the snowflakes. Here I'm using a Zig 2-way glue pen, and that makes it very easy to adhere all of those little parts and pieces in place. And I'm also using my crystal katana tool to pick up the little pieces. Again, that makes it very easy to pick and position these little tiny embellishments. I can never pick them up with my fingers. I also decided I needed to add some white dots, and for that I picked my Sakura white pen in size 10, and I just added white dots next to the snowflakes outside my shape. and also anywhere in between the snowflakes in the shape itself, just to add illusion of more snow to this background. I think that looked really beautiful. Finally, I used my Nuvo Aqua Shimmer Pen and I added a little bit of sparkle to each of the snowflakes. I think that was the perfect touch for this card. The shimmer pens add a lot of nice shimmer to your projects, and the shimmer is clear, but it's also a little bit on the silvery side, so it adds a really nice touch to this particular card design. I love using my shimmer pens for Christmas and winter cards alike. So that's it from me for today. I hope you found this video useful. If you make a card inspired by this video, we'd love it if you shared your project online and tagged us on social media. We always enjoy seeing what you make. By the way, here's another card idea that I shared in my blog recently using the same supplies and pretty much the same card idea or design. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet done so. Thanks so much for joining me today. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.